In our last shoot, we discussed the fact that a registered letter is actually quite powerful. Would you mind just elaborating on the power of a registered letter in relation to current events?
Well, it's the power of a registered letter is applicable everywhere, all over the world, in events that are past and probable events in the future. But when a registered letter becomes a legal document, this is how the people put things on the record. People have often heard the terminology on the record, for and on the record, but people don't really comprehend this because we're not being told the information in anywhere. But how people put up issues on the record is through a registered letter, because a registered letter becomes a legal document because it's on the record. It costs you £5, so you get a receipt. There's a track and trace method through the postal service. So this is important for if you have an idea, or you write a song or a poem, a play or an invention, you need to put it on the record before you apply for a patent, because it's usually these entities may hijack your intellectual property, right? So what you do, the best way of doing this is a kind of a workshop in itself that would probably warrant more time. But what you need to do, a handwritten letter is so important because it comes from a flesh and blood man or woman, okay? It doesn't come from a typewriter or a machine. And because your signature is your sign of nature, okay? Because you're from nature, right? So the best way to do this, you get some carbon copy paper, and this is it here, and you put it between the pages of your letter, okay? Now you can duplicate this many times. The importance about a duplicate is that it's done exactly at the same time. It's better than a photocopier because a photocopy can be done anytime. So there could be an argument about that in a situation. So this is why you do it in a duplicate, because duplicate, you can do a radiocarbon dating test if you wish. This just keeps things really tight. So you write your letter in handwritten blue ink, and you can, to whatever, you could ask Pat Rabbit, "Dear Pat Rabbit, Minister for Natural Resources, please forward me a copy of the contract which apparently enables the Irish people's sovereign natural resources, or sovereign Irish people's natural resources like oil and gas, to be explored, extracted and exploited for foreign gain." That's an example of a letter. And you can register that, keep a copy, and because that's a legal document and that's on the record. And if enough people do this, for example, on that matter alone, it would affect change, So you write your letter in handwritten blue ink, and you can, to whatever, you could ask Pat Rabbit, "Dear Pat Rabbit, Minister for Natural Resources, please forward me a copy of the contract which apparently enables the Irish people's sovereign natural resources, or sovereign Irish people's natural resources like oil and gas, to be explored, extracted and exploited for foreign gain." If enough people do this, for example, on that matter alone, it would affect change, you know. So people need to do this to affect change.
Can I ask you, how effective is this procedure, and could it be used for something like maybe the woodland leaks issues at the moment?
Sure, yeah, I mean, we the people went down to Avondale House yesterday and to see, it was a lovely day, and people were playing music and reading poetry and all that kind of thing, which is great. And that was organised by the Woodland League, so fair play to you guys. But I mean, we didn't see any remedy methods or solutions. It's a nice gathering event, sure. There were many Quilcha signs up in the place directing people to certain areas, including food. So I kind of scratched my head and said, well, hang on a sec, Quilcha are the ones selling off our woodlands, but yet at this event they seem to have a very strong hand in the event. That confused me, it still does today. However, if people want to affect change collectively or individually, you write a handwritten blue ink letter, duplicate, and you ask the Minister for Natural Resources, not just Quilcha, because they're just in the middle here. Ask the Minister for our natural resources, which include forestry, show me a copy of the contract between yourselves, or whoever it may be, and Quilcha, which apparently gives them the right to sell off we the people's natural resources. And when people do this, if enough people do this and register these letters in, that will affect change. You know, if people believe that this don't affect change and believe that a stroke of pencil on a piece of paper can install these jackasses, right? If people believe that a stroke of piece of pencil can install these, well, you can imagine the power of your handwritten blue ink letter. You know, people don't realise the power that they have in their hand. You know? People don't realise the power that they have in their hand. You know, and all you got to do is, you know, to prove that, write word on a piece of paper, right? And then put S in front of it. So you have you've turned the pen into a sword. That's how easy it is. I just created a sword. Okay, and all you got to do then is put S in front of it. Sword. So that's how the pen becomes mightier than the sword. Now you apply that simple principle in letter and register it. You don't think that's powerful? If enough people did this in every county, it would mean that the people have spoken. Because one registered letter constitutes 13,000 people statistically. Thinking the same thing, but doing nothing about it. So if you take a half a dozen people from every county in the country to vacate these people, you're talking millions of people. It's the most powerful referendum ever. That's all you do. And lawfully they're vacated.
And these documents have to be kept on the record for a while as well, don't they?
Sure, well, yeah, with their company policy, because that's all it's a company, they're just companies. But that's why you need to keep a duplicate copy. Keep that safe for you as proof that that's been sent and registered through the post. Always keep a copy. You can keep 10 copies if you want, and you can lock one in a safe. You can give one to you know, a trustworthy solicitor, so to speak. You can lodge one in a bank or a credit union. I would recommend a bank or a credit union. And a safe as proof that you've done this. And this is proof for future generations that you have done something about something, you know, during your lifetime to reverse the austerity, you know, that will be dumped on your children if you don't know how to stop this, or if you don't do anything about it, you know.
Can you give me an example recently of why or how people can actually make a complaint and put it on the record in lawful manner?
Okay, I think it was Cork. As far, if I'm not mistaken, there was apparently some young up-and-coming Fianna Fáil buck had thrown a coin or a number of coins at a number of people because they were protesting about the austerity measures. So what people can do, I mean, essentially, in essence, that's assault, right? Now the guards, their hands are tied, but the reason why they're tied is because the people are doing nothing about this. The guards need the people, we the people who are sovereign, you, me and the rest of us, to give them the material for them to act upon, right? So the guards can't do anything unless there's an official complaint made. So it's up to the people to make an official complaint on this. And if they don't, well, there is no complaint, so there is no action, so things continue as is. And the reason why people are doing this, you know, like this, you know, it's disrespectful, to say the least, to the people. The reason why is because the people have done nothing about this for too long. Probably because they don't know the simple methods and how to do anything. And all you got to do is to lodge an official complaint, for example, of assault, which it was assault, and he didn't only fire them at one person but a number, so you have plenty of witnesses to this. You do the same process. You handwrite a letter, duplicate it on carbon copy, handwrite your letter of what happened and lodge an official complaint to the Garda station, okay, and keep a copy. Now I can't tell you what to put on it because I wasn't there at the time, but you put as much information on that incident into your letter, okay, and when you have that done, you can cover copy that letter, which is CC, which means you can send it to other people if you wish, depending on the content or the time or your tactics, right? You may not need to cover copy it at the moment because it's only at the beginning of a process of an official complaint on the record to your Garda station, and you put that in, go into the Garda station and ask the guard at the desk to put that on the record as an official complaint. And if they don't want to do this, you register mail that letter in to the superintendent, okay? And he can amend that complaint because the guard who may refuse to accept this, well then he's part of the complaint because he's reneged on his duty, okay? So he can amend that and he can ask the guard his name, who may refuse to accept it on the record, and then you put his name in on the record, and then that is registered to the superintendent of that station, and then it is on the record. That's how you do it. Simple. That's the simple process. That's how you get things on the record. And most of the time you don't want to put these issues on the record because they're members of some political party and they don't want to rustle the feathers, and they may want to keep the statistics down on the record so they don't put it in the book. Okay? So that's how you do it. And all the people in the station, the Gardaí, band Gardaí, or men or women, they're all under the command of the superintendent of that station, and the book stops with the superintendent. If his men are out of control, you stick it to the superintendent on the record. Okay, that's how you do it.
But just to clarify, okay, in case some of our bravest are actually watching this clip, that, you know, this isn't actually to be disrespectful or harmful to them. It's actually to try and support you guys.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, let's be honest here. We need a Garda Síochána. We need the guardians of the peace. That's their oath of office. Guardians of the peace. They need to support the people, and the people need to support them, because that's what the job is. Guardians of the peace. They're not tax collectors. They never swore an oath. Maybe they did, not that I'm aware of it, to collect taxes for the Royal Oireachtas. Let's be honest here. We need a Garda Síochána. We need the guardians of the peace. That's their oath of office. Guardians of the peace. They need to support the people, and the people need to support them, because that's what the job is. Guardians of the peace. They're not tax collectors. They never swore an oath. Maybe they did, not that I'm aware of it, to collect taxes for the Royal Oireachtas. Okay, and that's what they're being used as. They're being used as policy officers, police officers, not as guardians of the peace. So I know how difficult that is if they've joined the Guards, because I used to wear the green uniform, and you know, it's very difficult to try and affect change, because you know, you have to be subject to the policies of the organisation. So you know, if I was wearing as a soldier, I couldn't. You can't do certain things because you signed up to the regime. So we understand how difficult it is for the Guards to try and affect change, because they have mortgages to pay, and bills to pay, and you know, food to put on the table like anybody else. You know, but they need an official complaint from the people. Then and only then they can act. And this is only in a situation where they refuse point blank to act, and you know, they make derelict their duty. You know, it's only then when you really need to crank up the issue. You know, because there's great guards out there, and unfortunately there's a bunch who are bad apples, and you get them everywhere. You know. So this is not directed on Garda Síochána in a bad way whatsoever. So they need support to the people, and the people need support to the Guards. And it's only then we can change things in a proper way, peaceful way.
You mentioned that in the past you've also had members of the emergency services approach you because of what's gone on in this country. Would you mind elaborating a little bit more about that?
Sure. There's loads of people around the country be active in the proper way. So what they have been doing is duplicating these very important information labels. So they've been going up all over the place in an effort to make the people aware of how to do these things. So they're simple stickers, right? And you get forward to an A4 sheet of paper, and you simply you know, stick them in areas where people are going to read them, you know. So this is on request of, you know, people, as you mentioned, the emergency services.
Okay, Harry, we've spoken about the importance of upholding the law and respecting the law. Could you maybe give me a few examples of how the law is being usurped?
Well, some people break the law, but the law is usually usurped by the ones who are in position of authority or alleged authority, because most of them are usurping the Constitution, which is a safeguard. The Constitution, as we explained before, it doesn't give you rights, it only lists some rights that you already have. It's just a guide to keep government in check, you know, because if we didn't have the Constitution, it would be tyranny, you know. We wouldn't have due process under the backbone of the Constitution, the writ of habeas corpus, for example. And even that's under threat. You know, there's people in jail who shouldn't be there under, you know, vexatious claims and that kind of thing, you know. So, you know, we're coming up to the wire in many ways, you know, where the last bastion of freedom is, you know, has been attacked, you know. Not just here but elsewhere, but, you know, we're living in Ireland, so we talk about Ireland. So the Constitution has certainly been diluted over the years with amendments and true referendums, you know. But, you know, really, you know, there's people being jailed, incarcerated without due process of law. You know, there are offices like the office of the Sheriff, the sheriff, there are no provisions in the Constitution for that office. Yet the guards are being used to facilitate the sheriff to evict the people from their homes. I mean, surely that's, you know, usurpation of natural justice, law and the Constitution. So it's not the people who are doing this, it's elements of the government who are doing this. And they're allowing, through warrant by Alan Shatter and his predecessors, you know, a warrant to enable the sheriff to function in this country. I mean, that's wrong. So that's one major, you know, way of how the law is being breached and the Constitution being usurped in this country by the very people who have probably sworn an oath of office to uphold and protect that, you know. So people need to be to know how to protect themselves against this tyranny that's been installed, and they've done it through the European Union, you know, with vote, you know, referendum after referendum, the Lisbon, again, the people didn't vote right apparently, although it was only with a pencil on a piece of paper, they didn't do it right, you know. So the vote was pushed for a second time, and that was the same thing through all the EU treaties, you know. But you know, what other, you know, the sheriff, at the moment the sheriff is the prime example of this, you know, and the unfortunate, you've got the emergency response unit, I don't know, you know, how they're becoming involved or why they're becoming involved in unlawful evictions, you know. This has been used against the people, sovereign people here, you know. And, you know, will the defence force step in and, you know, rectify this wrongfulness, you know? I mean, what if the people left as a defence against this, you know? I don't know. People have let things go too far, you know, over the years. They wouldn't, they didn't believe a lot of stuff was going to happen, and you know, they were preoccupied with other stuff, you know. But it's coming home to roost now, you know. People are being incarcerated for trivialities, you know, for monetary issues, you know. But not being able to pay debts is it's not a criminal offence. But, you know, people are being criminalised in district courts for not wearing seatbelts, for example, you know, or allegations going too fast through the air, for example. There's no injured party here, so people haven't broken the law. It's only an allegation that they offended an advanced corporation tax, which is an act and a method of extracting the people's currency, their energy, through the currency system, to extract via the revenue. And, you know, income tax as well, that's only voluntary compliance, you know. And, you know, if that's forced upon the people, that violates Article 40 of the Constitution as well. The Constitution to state that you have to pay an income tax on your intellect or flesh and blood. It's all voluntary compliance, you know. If you choose to form a limited company, well, that's different. You know, and people didn't cop on years ago when the likes of Charlie Haughey introduced tax exemption for artists. People didn't wake up to this. Well, if it's exempt from, you know, if artists are exempt from taxation, well, how can that just apply to them? People just fell asleep and just let it go on. So they've medicated people into acceptance and obey these policies, which are not law. Policy is not a law. But they brainwash people through tap water, because it's medication, and television programs, to accept policies. And a policy is not a law. Neither is a code. Code is a code. It's not a law. Now, people at the We the People talks, we usually ask a question, show of hands, and ask people who know America's Independence Day. Pretty much 80% raise their hands, and it's important that they see it, because they can see the amount of people who know America's Independence Day is the 4th of July. So the next question I usually ask, well, what's Ireland's Independence Day? And nobody knows. Nobody knows Ireland's Independence Day. So, you know, people need to know this. Your Independence Day is 24th of January, because on that date in 1919, every man and woman and child in this country became sovereign on the record. Now, you're born sovereign anyway, but we obtained a sovereign republic on the 24th of January 1919 in the Mansion House. That's when the first sovereign doll government and sovereign doll court sat. That's where the state, when the state was founded.
Maryland read the 1916 Proclamation, the foundation document, together with the Constitution, which was ratified here on the 21st of the 1st, 1919, under the 32-county election of 1918 for Ball's Hotel, which is up at Parnell Square. So that's how we became sovereign. You became sovereign citizens here today on the 21st of January, 1919.
Now, the proclamation of public adherence, the provisional government of the Irish Republic to the people of Ireland. Irish men and Irish women, in the name of God and of the dead generations from which she receives her own tradition of nationhood, Ireland, through us, summons her children to her flag and strives for her freedom. Having organised and trained her manhood through her secret revolutionary organisation, the Irish Republic Brotherhood, and through her open military organisations, the Irish Volunteers and the Irish Citizen Army, having patiently perfected her discipline, having resolutely waited for the right moment to reveal itself, she now seizes that moment, and supported by her exiled children in America and by gallant allies in Europe, but relying in the first on her own strength, she strikes in full confidence of victory. We declare the right of the people of Ireland to the ownership of Ireland and to the unfettered control of Irish destinies to be sovereign and indefeasible. The long usurpation of that right by a foreign people in Dublin has not extinguished the right, nor can it ever be extinguished except by the destruction of the Irish people. In every generation, the Irish people have asserted their right to national freedom and sovereignty. 6 times during the past 300 years they have asserted it in arms. Standing on that fundamental right and again asserting it in arms in the face of the world, we hereby proclaim the Irish Republic as a sovereign, independent state. We pledge our lives and the lives of our comrades in arms to the cause of its freedom, of its welfare and of its exaltation amongst the nations. The Irish Republic is entitled to and hereby claims the allegiance of every Irish man and Irish woman. The Republic guarantees religious and civil liberty, equal rights and equal opportunities to all its citizens, and declares its resolve to pursue the happiness and prosperity of the whole nation and of all its parts, cherishing all the children of the nation equally and oblivious of the differences carefully fostered by an alien government which have divided a minority from the majority in the past. Until our arms have brought the opportune moment for the establishment of the permanent national government, representatives of the whole people of Ireland and elected by the suffrages of all our men and women, the provisional government hereby constituted will administer the civil and military affairs of the Republic in trust for the people. We place the cause of the Irish Republic under the protection of the Most High God, whose blessing we invoke upon our arms, and we pray that no one who serves that cause will dishonour it by cowardice, inhumanity or rapine. In this supreme hour, the Irish nation must, by its valour and discipline, and by the readiness of its children to sacrifice themselves for the common good, prove itself worthy of the august destination to which it is called. Signed on behalf of the Provisional Government, Thomas J. Clark, Sean McDermott, Thomas McDonough, P.H. Pearce, Eamon Cant, James Conley and Joseph Plunkett.
Just to say, Billy received a letter as well from the government saying he was not to tell anyone this was happening today.
Hereby proclaim the Irish Republic as a sovereign independent state.
The sovereign seal, which I explained earlier on, is turned every year in the Mansion House on that date to claim our sovereignty. Ireland have not lost we haven't lost our sovereignty because it was not Dáil Éireann who signed to borrow this money. It was the Royal Oireachtas. The Royal Oireachtas borrowed the money, not Dáil Éireann. People need to get that through their head. So the Dáil does not owe a penny. They didn't borrow any money, nor did the Dáil sign any European EU accession treaties. It was the Oireachtas who signed these treaties, and as a result, we the people who are sovereign don't have the contract to any hand, act or part of this. So this is why simply returning to sender is effective, because you didn't sign up to any of this, because you're sovereign. And people need to read this book. They all sold out eventually. Page 23, you need to read page 23.
Speak a few words about the history of the organisation in general. Thank you very much. William Moore.
I must congratulate the Irish quality, wonderful display, the information that they're giving to everybody. It's your sovereignty, and it's time that we should look after our own sovereignty. My family bought Vaughan's Hotel, which is just a couple of doors up there. It's 29 Parnell Square and Granby Road, as the headquarters of Open Air, the Irish Republic of Common and all the other organisations. And that's it. That's it in 1919. And the 32 county election of 1918 that established the sovereignty of the 32 counties, that was from Vaughan's Hotel. And Bonn na HÉireann, the Irish Constitution, was written there between 1917 and 1919. It's 93 years old. Regardless of what anybody tells you, it's owned by the Irish Republican Brotherhood. And the Fenian Brotherhood, that's the Fenian Brothers, the shamrock, the green and the gold is the flower. And the Fenian Brotherhood was founded by John O'Mahony for America. They opened the White House for St. Patrick's Day, and they lobbied to build all the factories in China and all over Ireland. And they're a wonderful organisation in America. And but that's where it all started. That's where the state was founded, the Sovereign Republic of Ireland. And that's where the 32 county election of 1918, that's headquarters. And then it was ratified on the 21st of January 1919 in the Cabinet Room in the Mansion House. And we still go there 93 years on, and we're doing it, and I'm doing it 48 years. We don't get much attention. That's Bonn na HÉireann. And you know, the name of the state is Ireland. Everybody should have a copy of that. When you see the sovereign seal and you see Air on it, that people should look at De Valera's signature on the sovereign seal. It's a fabulous history. The harp is the covenant between God and man with all the information knowledge for his planet Earth and our civilization. And that's, the Book of Psalms is the Psalter, and that's the Psaltery. And that is two images. You put that up to the mirror and you see the harp of the Psaltery. And that's what makes everything legal, valid and bona fide. It's on your passport, your title deeds and everything. It's owned by the Irish Republican Brotherhood, who keep it in trust for the Irish people. That is the proclamation, which is the foundation document of the state. And that together on the 21st of January 1919 in the Cabinet Room at 12 noon, that was ratified under the 32 county elections, both those documents. And Dáil Éireann sat later in the round room, and they ratified the 32 county elections of 1918, the proclamation, and Bonn na HÉireann. And that's what's important. It has the two images, if you look at that. You know, I try to explain that. The sun ship, the moon ship, right? And if you look at that, you see the harp on the back. And you know, everything you want to know about our civilizations on that. And very kindly, the people who go to that ceremony every year have put it up on the website, and it's called billymaguire.com, mcguire.com. You can get into that, although my broadband has been taken away. But that's my granduncle, Tom Maguire. He and Sam Maguire, in 1914, the Irish Republican Brotherhood were looking for volunteers to collect intelligence on the Crown Forces and on the RIC. And he volunteered. He went to Clongerswood College. He could speak 5 languages, and he sacrificed his whole life for the independence, like those volunteers who gave their lives for us. And he joined the Essex Regiment in India, in Calcutta, in 1914, and he collected all the intelligence on the Crown Forces. And Sam Maguire, who was Church of Ireland and was educated for the British Civil Service, he got himself into the post office, and he got himself to the desk where all the intelligence for the Crown Forces and for the RIC came through his desk. And he came every Saturday with all that intelligence to Vaughan's Hotel here, 29 Parnell Square. And that's, you know, these battles, Kilmichael and Crossbarry and Drumkeen, they were all coordinated by them. Tom Barry and all those people. You know, that's how we won our independence. And then on the 21st of January, Ireland became the Sovereign Republic of Ireland. That's where we are, as defined in the 1916 proclamation. And the 32 county election, it's your sovereignty, your sovereign citizens. And then in 1922, that was a disaster. If you read De Valera's Constitution in Irish, you'll see what happened under the Anglo-Irish Treaty. The Crown of England would not, he wanted to make Ireland a unity for the Crown of England and the British. And what he did was he gave in the Shelburne Hotel, They changed Bunrock Nahairn. They gave themselves a constitutional claim. It was actually Michael Collins that did it in it. He acted as agent for the Crown of England. De Valera resigned from Dáil Éireann. Griffith was elected unanimously by the 32 county election of 1918, and that was unanimous as head of the Dáil Éireann government. And then the Oireachtas voted 64 to 57 for the Oireachtas. The Oireachtas is imposed by King George V of England. And the Oireachtas is supposed to borrow the money. Dáil Éireann has never sat in Leinster House. Dáil Éireann has never borrowed any money from the European Union. Dáil Éireann has never ratified the EEC accession treaty or the EU accession treaty. It's the Oireachtas that has borrowed the money, and that's under the Crown of England. It is the British taxpayer and the Crown of England and the British government is responsible for the sovereign debt. Irish people had no hand, act or part in it, nor do we have any, we do not accept that debt. And how can you have a debt when Dáil Éireann has never ratified the EEC or accession treaty? And interesting, on the 1st of January, when they came here, I wrote a letter to Susan Denham, and I said in that letter, and to the EU, that if they come here without Dáil Éireann ratifying the EEC accession, and that's an act of war. They can come here, and that's what the Gaul was on about. We only have a provisional government since 1922, when that was imposed by King George V. That's the Oireachtas. And you know, it's important that we know these things, and it's important to tell the European Union, look, we never borrowed any of your money. That was imposed. Your laws are being imposed. Down, why should we be imposed? We had that for 800 years. We're a sovereign people. We're a sovereign nation. We're lacking a sovereign government since 1922. Only a sovereign government has the right to issue licenses, collect taxes, make appointments, and appoint a judiciary under the sovereign seal of Dáil Éireann. It hasn't sat since 1922. It sits on the 21st of January in the Cabinet Room of the Mansion House. RTE refused ever to mention it. The papers refused to mention it. That's not correct, and I think it's time we stood up. Where would you go without your passport? That's what's on your passport that makes it legally valid in bona fides. And we have a wonderful history, and we're not allowed to know anything about it. And I think it's time. We have the most valuable territory in Europe. I claim every year, as President of the Irish Republican Brotherhood for the Irish people, all seas, all our mineral rights, all the assets of the state, right around the whole 32 counties. That's what I vote, and that was the vote of 1918. That was the vote again in 1922 when Dáil Éireann voted unanimously for Griffith, and Griffith was head of the Irish Republican Brotherhood and head of state. Michael D. Higgins is not president of Ireland. He's president of the Oireachtas and subject and servant to the Crown of England, his Queen. Enda Kenny is not Taoiseach of Dáil Éireann. He is Taoiseach of a provisional government imposed by King George V and is subject and servant to the Crown of England, his Queen. Susan Denham is the Chief Justice of, and if you look and read Mary McAleese's speech when the Queen was here last year, you will see that English common law, that's what the courts are under. You have no allegiance to English common law. Where are they getting their sovereignty from? I see the defence forces have gone off to some foreign country. Alan Shatter should be asked, where did he get his sovereign authority to send those to a foreign country? Does that mean that that country can attack us whenever they feel like it? Because we're in, is it under the Crown of England we're in under there, or under Dáil Éireann? It can't be Dáil Éireann because we haven't sat since 1922. And when the Queen came here last year, she had to get permission from the Irish Republican Brotherhood to lay that wreath across the road there in the Garden of Remembrance. And the reason that Garden of Remembrance is here is because of Vaughan's Hotel. And it looks out onto the Garden of Remembrance. And that's what we're remembering. I have never seen any member of the Oireachtas at that ceremony before. They never attend the 21st of January. And what do they go? That's what the Gaul was on about. When 27 countries sit around the table, you have to have a sovereign government. We only have a provisional one. Read Sarah Stat area yourselves. And Bulmer Hobson, who I knew very well, it tells you that it was imposed by King George V.
as a provisional government. That's what it is, and that's what the goal. He wouldn't allow us to join the EEC at the time, the European Common Market, because we didn't have a sovereign government. We still don't have a sovereign government today, and we still have never borrowed any of that money from Europe. And it's time that we stood up and said, make those people who you're voting for accountable to you, and ask them, go and tell the European Union, go and tell Merkel, the German, you expect her to bail out the British taxpayer on the sovereign debt. That's what she's doing, and that's what we're asking her to do. I think it is a scandal, and it's time that those TDs were held accountable to the Irish people. You have the Oakland and Heron Court in McKee Barracks, which any of them can be indicted for treason, and that's under the 1916 proclamation. That's what it's under. That is, and you read the last of it, you heard it be read out today, and that's the foundation document of this state. And that's, you see that when they leave out on your tax form, they leave out heir on it. That's blasphemy, and that's covered in Bunrock and Heron. And why aren't that judges? When you go in over the court, you see the sovereign seal that was changed from 12 to 13 strings, the symbol of Brehon law. And why can't the judge tell you, am I in here under the Bunrock and Heron? What Bunrock and Heron are you using? Michael D. Higgins said it was 75 years old this year. It's actually 93 years old. So they're not using the Bunrock and Heron. They're using English common law, but they won't tell you that. You have no allegiance to English common law. And it's time these people were made accountable. Civil servants, they are not an independent civil servant, is what Mary McAfee said in her speech when the Queen was in Dublin Castle. Independent civil servants, they're employed by the Oireachtas, they're paid for by the Oireachtas, they're not paid for by Dáil Éireann, they're not paid for. And if you look at, you know, when you see that, and you see what's going on, and you see the state says it's slow step because we're not told the truth. RTE do not tell the truth. They tell, oh, the minister said this. When I address a minister or a judge, provisional, that's what they are, provisional ministers and provisional judges. That's what they come from. You will see it over there on Michael Collins. He was a member of the provisional government. He was a member originally of the sovereign government. Dáil Éireann is the sovereign government, and you hear this thing about the Dáil. The Dáil is just a meeting. The Oireachtas sat in Leinster House. The Oireachtas, how can one of those TDs that they call themselves, they're not TDs, they are members of the Oireachtas. You can't be a member of the Oireachtas and a member of Dáil Éireann. It's just, to be a member of Dáil Éireann, you have to have a 32 county mandate. To change that for the children's referendum, it has to be a 32 county referendum. And you see on the note that came in my door in the post, it said it can only be changed in a referendum, but it didn't tell you it has to be a 32 county referendum. And you should ask these questions. We have to start standing. If you don't, they're going to keep on putting on that sovereign debt down on your children and your grandchildren who had no responsibility for it. And that's what I say. I don't want to delay you. I thank you very much. And I must say, I thank both in the Heron for the wonderful achievement here today. It's such a happy meeting, and there should be more of it. And coming them on are coming together again. And I asked, you know, for the peace and reconciliation that they would restore Vaughan to Terran when the state was founded. Every other country in Europe has a sovereign government, and we only have a provisional government. And ask them, when and where was the state founded? They can't tell you. Isn't that a scandal in this day and age, with all the communication we have? It's lies and deception, and I think we have to stop that. Thank you very much.
The Royal Oireachtas borrow the money, not Dáil Éireann. People need to get that through their head. refers to two governments, the provisional government and the sovereign Dáil Éireann that was established. Today we only have a provisional government.
Bones Hotel, 29 Parnell Square in Granby Road. We bought that in 1917 for the War of Independence and setting up the state. That's where the state was founded, the Sovereign Republic of Éire, Dáil Éireann and the Dáil Éireann Courts. And it was ratified under the 32 county election of 1918 from Bones Hotel. And that's the 1916 proclamation, the foundation document of the state. And Bunrock the Heron was written in Bones Hotel between 1917 and 1919, and it was ratified then on the 21st of January 1919 in the Cabinet Room in the Mansion House, Dublin. And look, that's the Sovereign Trinity, and you see the Sovereign Seal, the tricolour on the own stick and the harp of the Sovereign enshrined by the torque. And that is actually, that's Tom Maguire. That's my granduncle who coordinated all that. Now, the ceremony in the Cabinet Room in the Mansion House is very important. And what we do at 12 noon on the 21st of January, that is ratified. Bunrock na Heron and those two. That's red, and that's our allegiance to that. And the tricolour. And that is ratified. It's 93 years old, and that's the foundation of the state. And under the 32 county election of 1918, all 32 counties, and that's what's crucial. And then Dáil Éireann sat later in the round room and ratified Bunrock na Heron and the 1916 proclamation. And that's what we do. We have the largest territory, if you want me to show, you know, all the seas, fishing, mineral rights, all the assets of the state. I claim those under the 32 county election of 1918. That's the mandate that I have as President of the Irish Republic of Ireland. I'd say we have the most valuable territory in Europe, and that's what Europe always wanted. Now, that ceremony is very important. What happened in do you want me to go into 1922?
I think it's very
In
important.
1922, De Valera's constitution, which I referred to there, in that King George V, he wouldn't recognise or acknowledge us as a sovereign independent state. They were at war, they owed a lot of money, and so what they wouldn't acknowledge Dáil Éireann. So they made Dáil Éireann an illegal assembly. And what he did was he imposed the Oireachtas on us as a provisional government. And in 1922, De Valera stepped down from Dáil Éireann. Michael Collins stepped down from the Irish Republican Brotherhood. and Arthur Griffith was elected as head of the Dáil Éireann government. You have to get these things right. A unanimous vote of the Dáil Éireann government. You have two governments today. You have the sovereign Dáil Éireann government, and Michael Collins was elected by the Oireachtas imposed by King George V. I think it was, I better be right, 57 to 64. That was the Oireachtas who voted under King George V. And that's what you have today. The Oireachtas is not a government. The Free State was never a free state. The Free State is a corporation imposed by King George V to make Ireland remunerative for King George V. And the changes that were made to Bunrock na hÉireann in the Shelburne Hotel are not legal valid or bona fides. They gave him a 25% share of the shipbuilding of the world, which was Belfast shipyards, 80% of the linen trade of the world, and the heavy industry. And that's what he got, that's what he wanted. And in 1923, King George V and the Oireachtas made Dáil Éireann an illegal assembly. Dáil Éireann has never sat in Leinster House. It's the Oireachtas that sits in Leinster House. But then you come on, if you want to update that to today, Dáil Éireann has never ratified the EEC accession treaty or the EU accession treaty, and because it has never sat in Leinster House. And this is what General de Gaulle was on about. When 27 countries sit around the table, you have to have your sovereignty. We only have a provisional government. It's there in Sarah era quite clearly. Bulmer Hobson, who I knew very well, and you know, I have sat, I'm the last member of the Supreme Council left. I sat on the Supreme Council when I was 7 in 1950, and I'm the last member left of that. And that's what de Gaulle, he wouldn't allow us to join the common market at that time because we only had a provisional government. It was never sorted out, and we sort of were lobbed into the European Union. Dáil Éireann has never ratified the EEC accession or the EU accession treaty, or has never borrowed any EU currency from the European currency. The European euro is being imposed on it because England wanted to go into the European common market, and we got thrown in as well, and that's what happened. And so today, this thing and one thing that has happened this year is the first time that the European Union has recognised the Irish Republican Brotherhood, and they founded the state. And the state was founded in Vaughan's Hotel, 29 Parliament Square and Granby Road, and was ratified on the 21st of January. That's what's important.
Can I ask you a bit about your family's correspondence with the Kennedys, and most recently Queen Elizabeth's correspondence with the head of the IRB?
As head of the IRB, you see, when I said in 1922, when the Anglo-Irish treaty was signed, it was signed in London, of course, it wasn't signed here, and the plenipotentiaries in that, and De Valera and that stepping down, and Griffith unanimously being voted on by Dáil Éireann, and Collins being voted by the Oireachtas for the provisional government. Then Griffith died very shortly after that, and everything went back to my granduncle in Vaughan's Hotel, and that's why we still hold it. You have two governments. You have the sovereign Dáil Éireann government, and then you have the Oireachtas under King George V. That's what you have today. And that's why it's the Crown of England, the British government, the British taxpayer is responsible for the sovereign debt. There's no Irish person responsible for the sovereign debt, and it should not be put down on them. And in Europe, you know, Europe is imposing their will on our. European cannot do that by their own rules. And it's time that we're told on the 1st of January when they come in here. I've told them if they have to recognise the Irish Republican Brotherhood. They founded the state. And the Oireachtas is not a state. The Oireachtas is a corporation, and you know, we have no allegiance to that, and we have no allegiance to the European courts or the European Court of Justice, and they don't recognise it. And I think that's, you know, they have to come out and stand up.
I'm going to mention the courts in the four courts. Those courts are not sovereign Irish courts.
No, what happened in the courts was on the 21st of January 1919, you know, the symbol we put up was 12 strings. It's the symbol of Brehon law in the courts, the Dáil Éireann courts is the known.
and that was under 32, that was ratified on that day as well. And you had the Dáil courts in existence. But when you look up at the courts, you see 13 strings. And anyone who desecrates the 1916 proclamation, you could be indicted in the Old Heron Court in McKee Barracks, and you're indicted under the 1916 proclamation. And I mean, blasphemy, if you leave ERA or that out, or what they're doing in the Oireachtas today, that's blasphemy. And that's covered in the Constitution. And it should be those judges. And Mary McAleese, I have the article there, when the Queen was here last year, she said in Dublin Castle that, you know, that the courts were under English, well, she said common law. We have no allegiance to English common law. And the Oireachtas appoints the judges, they appoint the civil servants. Dáil Éireann doesn't appoint them. And the civil servants get a day off for the Commonwealth and for the Queen's birthday. I mean, how ridiculous can you be? And trying to put down the sovereign deadness. And when the Queen came here last year to the Garden of Remembrance, that's there because of, we said Vaughan's Hotel was out under it, she had to get permission from the Irish Republican Brotherhood to lay that wreath in the Garden of Remembrance. And as Harry can tell you, we laid the wreath at Vaughan's Hotel, and 12 Easter lilies entwined with shamrock, the Fenian Brotherhood and the Irish Republican Brotherhood wreath. And John Hassett read the proclamation, and we claimed all our sovereignty, all 32 counties, and all the seas and all the minerals, all the assets, for the Irish people. That's what we claim it for. That's what the state should be run for, instead of these people constantly robbing it and ripping it off. And I am very disappointed with RTE. They are the propaganda arm of the Oireachtas. The Oireachtas has a propaganda department in the Oireachtas, and you know, they're spending millions of pounds giving out wrong information and misinformation and leaving sovereign seals and error out of it. And the RTE, they are in touch with the Oireachtas all the time through the Oireachtas PRO. And the PRO, he is very anti. He doesn't want to know anything about our sovereignty. He doesn't want, they never have come to the Mansion House. They have never come. You saw the Queen when she was here. We saw Alan Shatter going down. We saw Mary McAleese. We're doing it every year, and nobody ever comes. We're doing it on our own. We go across to Vaughan's Hotel. We explain where the state was founded. When and where was the state founded? That's the question. Ask the judges, where are you getting your sovereign authority from? Ask Alan Shatter, who gave you sovereign authority to send the defence forces out of these countries? Those countries could come in and attack us because we're going into sovereign countries. Where are they getting their sovereign? It's from the Crown of England. It's like Merkel, the Germany. They will not bail out the British taxpayer. That's what they're asked to be doing for the sovereign debt. To bail out the British taxpayer. They went to war, and you know that conflict between Germany and England all the time. And yet they expect Germany to bail out the British taxpayer. That is, what sort of people are we? You know? Sorry.
Yeah, it's interesting about the courts, because the courts are not sovereign Irish courts, and Irish people need not enter those enclaves because they're establishments under the Oireachtas. What we're witnessing now is a second orchestrated genocide, which was called famine during the time. There's people now going hungry in their homes, and they're being evicted from their homes via the banking system, which is under the remit of the Crown, essentially. And, you know, nothing is, people have to ask themselves, what's changed since the 1840s? Little or nothing, you know. And the Sheriff and the Bar Corporation there are no provisions in the Constitution for both those offices, constructs, and people need not enter the courts, and they need not contract with the courts or contract with the offices of the Sheriff.
But it's important to say about the courts as well. We talked about the Dáil Éireann courts, but the sovereign courts. And today they're appointed by the Oireachtas under King George V and the Queen. The Queen is now the one. And you know, they just won't. How can you evict
an Irish person from his house. I mean, all these volunteers gave their lives. It was about land owning your house, owning your plant. It has the sovereign seal on your title deeds, your passport, and that's your allegiance. And how can they do that? I mean, that is just not on. And I don't think any other country in the world will put up with what's going on. All that should have been sorted out in 1922. My father founded the Peace, Reconciliation and Prosperity process in 1950. He went to Pope Pius XII in Rome. And you know, when you think of the Crown of England coming here last year, and she did, and I have to admire her. She laid that wreath there. And well, she did get permission from the Irish Republic as well. But it was to continue on. They were to go back to 1922 when all this went wrong and to sort it out. They never went back. The banks do not have a license to trade as banks. How can a bank? Where are the courts getting their license to trade? Where are the courts getting their license to have a court? You know, it's just not on.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke to some guy earlier on from Cork, and he proved the fact. He went into the banks and he said, I can't pay you monies because you don't have the license to receive the monies, although it doesn't have legal tender printed on the notes anyway. So the bank actually closes the account and cancels the debt. That's the situation that we're in. It's up to the people to ask the questions and demand the answers. And as long as they keep accepting things the way they are, well, nothing is going to change. It's as simple as that. Because everything is pretty much massive voluntary compliance. And you don't have to comply because it's not a sovereign form of government.
Well, that's very valid, because what Harry has said there is correct. And I'm looking at an Eastern lady up there, which is, you know, rather like, the Taoiseach Provisional, as I called him, announced in the Leinster House that they were giving them, what, 1 point something million to give them, and they didn't even have to vote for it. I mean, where are we going? That's how the Oireachtas was set up, to go out and borrow money and put the sovereign debt down on the people. You know, where is that man living? They don't have the right. They don't even, the referendum can only be changed as the literature comes in the door and says it has to be done in a referendum, but it has to be done in a 32-county referendum. It's like the Oireachtas. They can't borrow any money. They can't even have a referendum under the Anglo Treaty of 1922. And now they're going out borrowing money. And yet we see Article 21, where it says money bills shall be initiated in Dáil Éireann only. How can the Oireachtas go out and borrow money? They're doing it on their own account. And why should we have to pay for that? Why? Where are they? They have to account to the people. And that's what they have to do. It's like the judges, they're appointed by the Oireachtas. They're supposed to be appointed by Dáil Éireann. But Dáil Éireann hasn't sat since 1922. I mean, how can Eamon Gilmore say, lads, when we come back from our holidays, we'll have a debate on this, borrowing this money. I think they said 500, was it 500,000 each or something? That's what it was costing. And those civil servants, they're paid by the Oireachtas. They're not paid by Dáil Éireann. And they get a day's holidays for the Queen and for what is it? The Commonwealth. You know.
Just a quick question, Billy, in case anybody thinks this is trite or, you know, old hat. Can you explain to me about the Indian delegation and the significance?
I can indeed. In I think it was 1912 around, President Geary, the fourth president of India, he was here studying law. I actually met him as a child. He came to see my father in Willowbank. And we would have met Mahatma Gandhi in South Africa. James McGuire was chairman of the British South African Company, who got the mining rights in Bulawayo. But of course they were under the British in that time. And he came here to study law, and he became a member of the Irish Republican Brotherhood. He became, is that gone?
Might be done. No, it's okay.
He became, President Geary, G-I-R-I, if anybody is looking him up, he became a member of the Irish Republican Brotherhood, he became a member of Óglaigh na hÉireann, and he became a member of Sinn Féin. And India couldn't unite the Irish people.
or India couldn't unite their own people. There was no way. The GAA was the backbone of our independence. You had a club in every little town and village in Ireland. And India had nothing like that. So when England imposed the Liverpool salt tax, it was known. They put a tax on all salt in India. Now there was salt every place in India because from evaporation. And in a hot country like that, the only way you could preserve food was with salt. And that's how the Indian people lived, preserved food. But what happened was they imposed the Liverpool salt tax. So that came out of Vaughan's Hotel. I told you that he was part of Vaughan's Hotel and he was there, and we were very friendly with Mahatma Gandhi in South Africa and it was in Vaughan's Hotel that was put together how India would unite their people. And it was the Liverpool salt tax. When all of the Indian people rebelled against the English, is known as the Liverpool salt tax, that everybody had to pay a tax in India for salt. And that's how they united the Indian people. And they come every year to the Cabinet Room in the Mansion House. Some people from India come every year, and they recognise that that's where they got their independence. And our constitution, Bunnock Nair, is 93 years old, and their constitution is our constitution, and their flag is our flag the other way around. And they're the links. And that's how they got their independence. You see the tricolour of theirs the other way. And those links are there. And they still acknowledge those, you know. And that's how it was done. And all that, the Indian Brotherhood and the Egyptian Brotherhood and all those brotherhoods going way back for the War of Independence, all that intelligence, as I said, you know, when Tom was collecting it for the Essex Regiment, you know, they all were part of that brotherhood here. And that's how we had a world brotherhood. And that brotherhood is very old. It goes back to the Knights Templars and goes right back. You know, I often say King David playing the harp, and that, and you know, the harp is the covenant between God and man with all the information, knowledge for his planet Earth and our civilization. Everything is on that. And then we follow Christianity. The 12 strings, the 9 is what the Crown of England has up on our coat of arms. And it's important to say, it's not the crown that is the sovereign in Britain. It is the harp that is the sovereign. And up in the coat of arms of the Crown of England, you see our sovereign seal. And you saw in her Jubilee going out to the Royal Barge. She had the sovereign seal of Dáil Éireann on the tender. And then when she got onto the Royal Barge, she had the sovereign seal, the Maid of Éireann sovereign seal. And when she's not in Buckingham Palace, it's the Union Jack that's flown. But when she is there, that is the sovereign seal. And that's the sovereign harp sign, and that's the sovereign seal harp sign, and that's the sovereign harp sign. And you see the Pope when he's giving his blessing, and he's giving the cross, which is the cross staff. And you saw for the Queen's Jubilee, you saw the Archbishop of Canterbury, when he gave the blessing to the Queen, he gave her the sovereign harp blessing, is what he gave. That's what he gave. And you saw it here in Dublin, when the Congress was here in the RDS. And you see Christ in the background giving the sovereign harp sign and the sovereign blessing. And that's what it is. And that's today when the proclamation was being read, that's the salute I was given. And that's what I was accepting. And that's what we still have. And I think every child in the world, we all have the same intellect. And every child can understand that. They can understand mathematics, they can understand, because it's your being. That's what it's about. Tutankhamun, that's the sundial, the compass, the wheel, everything about it. That's it. There's where it is. We have it, and we're not allowed to know. And I blame RTE, and I blame the schools, and I blame the Oireachtas for it. And I think we can't go on, you know.
Vital, yeah. They have airbrushed it out, but their intention is to paint it back in.
Yeah, but they want to just control it. That's the point. That they just want to control it as just a number, or just, you know. But we, you know, and under the lowest form, take away your house. How can they take away a person's house? You know, those volunteers gave their lives, and they carry 8 strings IV on their buttons. Irish volunteers, Ogden Nair, and they can't deny it. And that's what they have to carry sovereignty. The guards don't carry sovereignty. They're 7 strings. That's theirs. And the Garda Síochána were in the cabinet room in the mansion. They were in the mansion house on the 21st of January. It was their first day on duty. And they didn't even know it. And guards coming up arresting people who you saw the day we were in the Florence Hotel. There was 150 guards around us. They were the most ignorant bunch I've ever come across. I didn't know anything. One day, one who was put there because they knew we were coming. We walked the whole way up on the street that day when the Queen was here. There's barricades everywhere. We opened every barricade, we just walked through. You know, which was amazing.
Sure. All security, yeah, just walked through.
Can I ask you both specifically about the GAA and the symbol and the medal? I think that's crucial. And then you guys can free wrap from there on in.
Yeah.
But specifically about why the medal was changed, what it means, you know, just and maybe tone it to get the attention of a GAA club manager.
Well, that's the medal. It's a sacred circle with common loop cascade, and in the centre of the Celtic cross with the words Éire. And you have the Fenian Brotherhood sovereign seal, 5 strings. And that's the highest accolade that any player can be given, the sovereign seal of his country. And the GAA, as we said, was the backbone of the War of Independence. They had a club in every little town, and even the Hurleys were known as the Tipperary Rifles, and they used to drill with those. And the GAA was the most wonderful organisation. It was a national organisation. Then comes along 2008, and on the 4th of September 2008, the GAA didn't tell anybody. They changed from being a national organisation to a corporate body. And as we know, a corporate body is only about making money. And from what we're told, they got 64 million for Casement Park in the H Block in Belfast. And they dug up, after the U2 concert, they dug up Croke Park and they replaced it with English soil. And that was the quid pro quo, that when the Queen came here, she was standing in English soil. Now, I've asked the GAA many times and they won't confirm anything. They won't tell you anything about anything. And I asked them, who gave you permission to remove the sovereign seal from the medal? And that's the All-Ireland medal. And there is no All-Ireland final medal since the 4th of September 2008. And it was the 2008 was the 150th anniversary of the Irish Republican Brotherhood. And Queen's University commemorated, the University of Ulster commemorated, and the University of Limerick commemorated. And Brian Cody came down to Limerick University and gave the lecture. And I asked him, Brian, show me your medal. And Brian said, yeah, well, you know. I said, you know they've taken off the sovereign seal now? He didn't even know. Is the Sam Maguire, the Liam McCarthy, and that medal are owned by the Irish Republican Brotherhood? As is that is owned by the Irish Republican Brotherhood. But as is, they're owned by the Irish. They're the foundation documents of the state, the Sovereign Republic of Ireland. And it's all about money. And they have never told, and if I went down to Kilkenny and asked them, they could show me the Liam McCarthy trophy and say, oh yeah, that's it, that. I said, now show me the medal. And that's over 100 years, I've forgotten how many, 100 and something years. That was your proof that you had won that medal, the highest accolade in the country, the highest accolade in the world. And you could show that to your children and your grandchildren and say, I won that, I played in the whatever, the 2012 All-Ireland Hurling final, and I got that. If I went down to Kilkenny today, they could show me the Liam McCarthy, but they couldn't show me that. If I went to Donegal, they could show me the Sam Maguire trophy, which is Irish Republic as well, but they couldn't show me the medal. So that if you haven't, it is a GAA medal, and what they had to replace it, they took off Éire and the sovereign seal without any permission or telling no members that knew it, and they replaced it with the symbol of the serpent. And those players today that are in Croatia, 2,000 people, they're not even told you're playing on English soil. They're not even told it's not an All-Ireland final. It's a GAA final, is what it is, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah. Probably covered about everything, I think.
Just shoot the base for a second.
Yeah, sure. So what we're saying, what you're really proving is the fact that Ireland, the nation known as ERA, has been formed into a corporation for the benefit of the Crown.
That's exactly it.
That's the scenario. And also with the medal, they have put the 3 serpents on the medal in replacement of the sovereign seal.
And look what happened to the banks on the 4th of September 2008. Look what happened to the factories. And look what happened to the country. And they said, oh, nothing would happen. Oh, it's only mythology. Look what happened in 1155 when Pope Adrian IV robbed the sovereign seal to give it to Henry II to build their empire. You had the 100 Years' War, and you had the fleur-de-lis and the sovereign seal. They took 100 years to remove the fleur-de-lis from the coat of arms. And there's the coat of arms. You can show it today.
Just hold that still for 1 second, Billy. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to just zoom in.
So what follows the desecration of the sovereign seal is war and strife.
Yeah, and that's what, even in when we talked about King David, they lost the ark for corruption. They took it to war. And that's how the Hebrew people lost the Ark of the Covenant. We have the Covenant. And they came to Tara and in about 1943 and dug up all Tara looking for the Ark. But that is the Covenant. The Ark is only the box that it's in. Look at there's 1155, Pope Adrian IV.
Just 1 second.
And look at the fleur-de-lis. There's the fleur-de-lis. And look at the sovereign seal. That had to be removed. That took the 100 Years' War to remove that. And look at Cromwell. Why has Cromwell our sovereign seal up in his coat of arms if it isn't important? Why is it so important today to the Crown of England? Surely the Crown of England can come today and say, why has she that up? And I said, when you saw the royal tender going out to the royal barge, she had the sovereign seal of Dáil Éireann. She didn't even ask permission from the sovereign. That's another country's. Why do they want our sovereign seal up? And all right, that's one thing. But why would you desecrate a sacred symbol? And that's what I'm saying. And that's why we're in all that trouble today. And that's why people are in trouble. Because they can't believe in anything. Because you can't believe the politicians. And there it is there for you. They're the 2. Can you see that? They're all there in that. That's not Billy McGuire saying it. There it is. They're the facts. And what is she doing with that up there? You look at the fleur-de-lis. Look, it's there in black and white. And I think it's time that between, look, our 2 countries could be great countries, but the sovereign Republic of Ireland has to be run for the people of the sovereign, their citizens. They are the sovereign, and Leinster House should be abolished. That's all I'm saying. And all those assets belong to the people, and we're being denied that. And oh, you don't matter. No, just this all the time. And we have the most valuable territory in Europe. It's time we stood up and asked the question, and asked those politicians. We saw the Mann Tribunal, the result of that, when Mann said politicians are corrupt. And that was the final judgment. It cost, I don't know how many million and how many years it did, but that
If people believe that this don't affect change and believe that a stroke of pencil on a piece of paper can install these jackasses, right? If people believe that a stroke of piece of pencil can install these, well, you can imagine the power of your handwritten blue ink letter. You know, people don't realise the power that they have in their hand.
It's 6-1, RTE News with Brian Dobson and Eileen Whelan.
October the 4th is set for the referendum that could spell the end of the Seanad.
It is the people who are sovereign, not some group of parliamentarians because it upsets their career plans. It is the people who will decide this issue.
It's 6-1, RTE News with Brian Dobson and Eileen Whelan.
There's growing pressure from the opposition on the Minister of State for Small Business, John Perry, after he and his wife consented to a judgment against them for almost €2.5 million in unpaid loans. However, the Minister for Agriculture, Simon Coveney, said he hoped Junior Minister John Perry would be able to stay in his post despite his financial difficulties.
Yesterday, the judgment of almost €2.5 million in unpaid loans against John Perry and his wife. Today, the political reaction from the government and opposition benches. The Taoiseach said he had a great deal of sympathy for John Perry and his family.
I think that there are many Irish businesses that have found themselves in this kind of difficult situation. I think obviously he has to have some time to work his way through that. I have very high regard for John Perry. I think he's doing a very good job as Minister.
Earlier, the Minister for Agriculture, Simon Coveney, said he hopes his party colleague will be able to stay in his post despite his financial difficulties. The opposition were also focusing on those financial difficulties today. Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin believe he should be given space to resolve his personal debts. But on the political front, they say there are questions to be answered.
There is certainly a concern there in relation to the crossover of his personal financial difficulties with the banking system and also his interaction with banks as Minister of State. And I think that he does need to clarify.
A minister with responsibility for small businesses to be in so much debt to the banks at this time does demand that the Oireachtas register of interest does include and should include that the minister has to declare that.
While the Queen said Minister Perry should stand aside from his ministerial role until his debt difficulties are resolved. While the Queen said Minister Perry should stand aside from his ministerial role until his debt difficulties are resolved. While the Queen said Minister Perry should stand aside from his ministerial role until his debt difficulties are resolved.
And when people do this, if enough people do this and register these letters in, that will affect change. You know, if people believe that this don't affect change and believe that a stroke of pencil on a piece of paper can install these jackasses, right? If people believe that a stroke of piece of pencil can install these, well, you can imagine the power of your handwritten blue ink letter. You know, people don't realise the power that they have in their hand.